Hi there. Welcome to Mojo Motivation and Mental Health, where we have conversations that change lives. I'm Mike Orlowski. Now, before we start, if you're struggling right now with depression, anxiety, or thoughts of ending your life, please reach out. Call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If it's emergency, call 911. You're not alone, and you do matter. If this show does help you, or if you think it could help someone else, if these conversations are making a difference in your life, please subscribe, like, and share this episode. It's important that others hear it as well. Now, today's conversation is about the voices in your head that tell you you're not enough. My guest is Jason Barnaby, a fractional sales leader, keynote speaker, and founder of Firestarters Inc. But before we talk about sales or keynotes or fire metaphors, we need to talk about the curve. That was Jason's commute, where one road merged into another, and every time Jason drove through that curve, he would think about how to roll his car so that it would look like an accident. And I know that feeling. I've been there. He didn't want to be here anymore. He's collected over 1,200 what if abouts. And that's Jason's word for the pesky doubts and fears that work hard to keep us stuck and afraid. What makes you so smart? Why do you think that's going to work? That's probably going to fail. You're dumb. It didn't work before. Haven't you learned yet? Today, we're going to talk about these voices, about finding your tribe, about why you can't just light a fire and walk away. You have to fan your flame. Jason, thank you for being here.
Mike, it's my pleasure. Really excited to have this conversation. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. I'm grateful for you. Now, let's start with the
Likewise.
curve. And I know this feeling. I've been down that road. There was a spot
hmm
on your commute where you would think about rolling your car and make it look like an accident. Take me back to that time. What was happening in your life? What was going through your head at the curve?
Yeah. Um, so 22 and 23, I don't know how many hundreds of times I drove that that particular route. Um, you get when you get in that curve, you dump off into the fast lane of the bypass that goes
Mhm.
around my city. And so, I was thinking, well, those people are going to be hauling. So chances are
Mhm.
even better that it's going to be done. And really, the reason for me was, how do I make this look like an accident? Because I came to the realization that I was worth more dead than alive, and
Mhm.
I have a life insurance policy, but suicide obviously not covered. So how do I get this done to take care of my family? Because I obviously feel that strong sense of responsibility, but also
Sure.
I was just tired. And Mike, the craziest thing is, and this didn't happen until I got on the other side of this struggle. But the craziest thing is, I'd come around that curve and could I do it now? Am I going fast enough? Is this the right spot? And then
Yeah.
I'd merge onto the bypass, and my exit was the very next exit. And by the time I got to the exit, which was maybe 30 seconds,
Mhm.
I would be thinking, what am I going to have for dinner? That's not
Yeah.
normal. It's not
No.
normal to think about ending your life and not reacting to that. And then the very next thought, what are we going to do for dinner? I
I know
was
that feeling.
I was so numb. I was so numb. And
Mhm.
so much so that in the fall of 23, I had gone to see my primary care doctor. And for those of you who haven't been to see a primary care doctor recently, or I don't know if yours does this, but mine, every time you go in, there's a little brief anxiety and depression survey. It's like five
Mhm.
questions on each side. Like, do
Yep.
you feel in danger at home, or have you had thoughts of suicide? All that sort of stuff. And
Mhm.
so I went to the doctor in October. She said, I want to see you again in 3 months, which I thought was weird because I'm like, well, I'm here now in October. Why do I need to come back in January? And I was like, well, maybe it's the physical thing. We want to get that knocked out at the beginning of the year. I don't know. It
Yeah.
didn't, make sense. And then when I came back in January, my doctor came in, she goes, because the nurse had asked me, she said,
Mm.
are you still taking Wellbutrin, which is an antidepressant? And I said, I've never been taking
Mm.
Wellbutrin. I don't even know what you're talking about. And the nurse goes, well,
Oh.
the doctor prescribed it for you when you were here last time. I said, Mike, I'm completely serious. I said, well, that's news to me. And she said, well, the doctor will talk to you about it when she comes in. And she's an
Yeah.
awesome woman. She came in and, she said, hey, it was beginning of the year. So she's like, hey, happy new year. I'm like, happy new year. And we have a pretty, we banter back and forth. She goes, you want to tell me why you didn't fill that prescription that I gave you in October? Because here's the other thing.
Yeah.
When you get put on a new med, they want to check on you in 3 months, which is why I was asked to come back in January.
Yeah.
And so I said, do you want to talk about the fact that I don't remember this conversation? And she started laughing. And then she goes, oh, you're serious. And I was like, I am completely serious. And,
Yeah.
she is a woman of integrity. I respect her
Sure.
deeply. But I told her, I said, I believe you that we had that conversation, but if it were up to me, I would go to my grave saying that we never talked about that because I have zero recollection. Zero.
Yeah.
In fact, I came home from that appointment. My wife's like, how'd your doctor's appointment go? I was like, great. And so here was
Yeah.
here was where, to go back to the curve and kind of take this use this metaphor, this is where the rubber met the road for me, because she looked at me and she said, the doctor, and she said, well, here's the deal. She said, when you were here in October, on the basis of that 5-question survey, I used that as a basis to prescribe you antidepressants. Your scores
Mm,
on that same survey today are substantially worse than they were in October.
mm,
And she said, and that really got my attention. And she said,
yeah.
morally and ethically, I am not okay as your primary care doctor allowing you to go home by yourself, knowing what I know from the survey. And that
Mhm.
rocked me. And I was like, okay. And she said, so you're going to do, and this is why I think having somebody, getting help, just finding, somebody who knows more about this than you do
Mhm.
is really important. And she said, you're going to do 3 things. Number 1, you're going to go straight to the pharmacy when you leave here and you're going to fill that prescription. Number 2, you're going to go home and you're going to take the first dose of that. And number 3,
Mhm.
you are going to take a picture of you at home with this bottle in your hand after you have taken the dose. And if those 3 things don't happen by 6 o'clock tonight, I'm calling your wife.
Mm,
And I was like, shit, okay, I'm listening. And I
yeah.
and I did that, and I will tell you, it wasn't immediate, and I know that there are people who are like, "Gosh, I've been trying for years to find the right med." For me, this one just clicked, thankfully. And by Sunday, so the first dose was Friday, second dose Saturday, third dose on Sunday, I was looking at my reflection in the mirror on Sunday, and the way that I explain this, it's like a slow close up in the movies, where like your face gets, you just see more and more and more till that, you only see like this part in the end. And I felt like
Yeah.
that's what was happening in the mirror.
Mm, mhm.
And it was honestly like the first time that I had like allowed myself to really look at myself in a very
Mhm.
long time. I don't know how long, but years. And as
Yeah.
I'm just staring at my reflection, like tears just like right out of the corners of my eyes, just a couple just started falling. And I
Mhm.
literally looked in the mirror and said out loud, oh, there you are. It's nice to see you again. And that was the beginning of the smoke beginning to clear, where I then had at least, I mean, at that point, it was a tiny bit, but enough of that tiny bit of distance from this
Mhm.
fog and the smoke and time to reflect, where I was like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Like, I did not. It's kind of like when I was a kid, there were these cartoons where like the spirit of the cartoon character would like jump out of them and like start talking to them like, what are you doing? It's what's going
Right?
on? And I
I grew up
felt,
then.
yeah, right. And so
Yeah.
I felt just like that. I felt like, I was looking at myself from the outside, like, what have you been doing?
Yeah.
And I mean, the difference was remarkable. And I have to tell you, like you said in the intro, I run a company called Firestars Incorporated. I'm a keynote
Mhm.
speaker. The product that I sell is what I call practical motivation. And I'm like, who the hell is going to hire a depressed keynote speaker? right?
Yeah.
And I remember on Saturday morning with that, you know, the bottle my antidepressants were sitting on our bar, and I was cleaning up the kitchen, and I was looking at it, and I was like, "Ugh," like, I wanna do a post about this, but I don't really know what to say, and I literally
Hmm.
went in my living room, I had the bottle in my hand, I hit record, and it was like a 7 to 8-minute video. I never went back and
Oh,
rewatched it.
wow.
I just literally I remember shaking the bottle, like, and saying, like, "I'm pissed that I have to take these. This is not I'm not
Yeah.
happy about this." And I literally I hit, I hit end recording, I posted it, and then I, got up and finished cleaning the kitchen. And to date, that remains one of my most engaged with posts.
Mm.
And what I was surprised by a couple of things. Number one, the number of people who commented and shared on the post itself. And I was also surprised by the number of text messages, emails, direct messages that I got. And several said, I didn't want to comment publicly because I don't want my company to see this, which I think is a travesty.
Unfortunate. Yes.
And so many people that I know are like, I'm on meds too. I've been struggling with this as well. Thank you for, trying to make this normal. And I wasn't trying to make it normal at all. I was ranting about having to be on freaking meds, right? But
Yeah.
it my I don't know if I've ever said this before. My pain and my struggle
Hmm.
was a spark for other people. I got several messages
Right.
that said, I'm going to make an appointment to see my doctor because I see myself in this video.
That's good. That's
And
important.
dude, being on the other side, that makes it all worth it.
100%. Now, would you find that the turning point was the day you looked in the mirror or when the doctor pretty much told you this is how it's going to be? Or was it something else?
I think the the turning point for action was when the doctor said that because
Hmm.
I was so numb. I didn't have a perspective. I just didn't. I didn't see what she saw. Even
Hmm.
when she talked about the results of the survey thing. I think
Right.
the real turning point for me was on Sunday looking in the mirror and just like, and again, it was so small in comparison to what it is now on the other side of this, but just that little
Hmm.
like crack in the door, that little ray of light that came in to go, oh, I forgot
Hmm.
about what's out there. Like I can see
Right.
it a little bit and like what is like let's keep cracking that thing open just a little and little by little and I would say within the next 3 to 6 months, I mean absolutely transformational life change.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think for many of us, it was a small, little, insignificant at the time thing that was the turning point. And then we look back and we're like, huh, you know, like for me, it was kind of out of the blue, just thoughts that came through my mind that said, "Hey, you still need to be here. Your story matters, and you
Yeah.
need to be around to share it with others." And that was the turning point. And you don't think it's a big deal at the time, but I mean, it saved my life, and obviously this saved yours. So it's important, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
Let's now that journey back, right? With the meds and everything. How long did it take before you like, okay, I feel really good and I'm starting to talk about this more and now I'm using it and speaking about it in keynotes. What was the timing like for that?
That's a really good question that in my mind, I'd really I'm gonna actually go back and double check this, but I think as I'm thinking
Sure.
about it, it was probably well, I'll say this, that reaction to my post on LinkedIn was a real like, "Oh my gosh," like, number 1, way more people are paying attention than I realize. That
Hmm.
was very surprising to me.
Yeah.
And I think at that moment, there was something inside of me that was like, this message makes a difference. And I think I had, whether I said it out loud or not, or if it was, a subconscious thing, I was like, I'm never not going to talk about this again. And so, I did start posting more about it. I did have more people reach out, and I have pretty much since that time at least say something. Like, if I'm not gonna tell this part of my story, I at least I have a slide in my keynote presentation that I use that says, "Live, laugh, go to therapy." And so
Mhm.
I use that as an opportunity just to say, like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with therapy. My wife is a therapist, and I think she has a great saying that I love to share when I'm on podcasts like this. Because before I had it, and by the
Mhm.
way, I had a therapist during all this time. I had a
Mhm.
therapist. We were working through some of these things. We were talking about this stuff. But
Mhm.
for me anyway, this was imbalanced. It wasn't right. And
Mhm.
for those of you who are like, well, I don't want to be on meds, if you break your arm, you go to the doctor and you get your arm set. And if you
Right?
pull your hamstring, you don't keep running. Like, you stop and you
No.
do the things that are necessary in order to heal. And I don't
Right.
know if I'll be on these meds forever. I don't think I will, but it
Sure.
it's where I am now. And so the thing that my wife said, which I love, I said, "I don't even know what it means to have a therapist." And she said,
Yeah.
"Having a therapist means that you have someone who has your back 100% of the time." And I've been married almost
Yeah.
29 years, and I don't have my wife's back 100% of the time, and she doesn't have my back 100% of the time because we're selfish people. But
Yeah.
your therapist, when you find a good one, they
Mhm.
have your back 100% of the time, and it makes a tremendous difference.
Yes, it's powerful. Now you talk about the voices in your head, and I know this all too well, right? What makes you so smart?
Mhm.
Why do you think that's going to work? You're dumb. That's just a bad idea. You're going to fail. There's so many voices. How do you respond to those voices now? What do you do when they start talking? Because I know sometimes I still hear them every now and then,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I've learned to refrain it.
Yeah. I'll give you a real life example. So a couple of years ago, I live in Indianapolis. It's the home of Riley Children's Hospital, very
Hmm.
well respected and well known children's hospital around the country.
Hmm.
And I had been hired by the head of child oncology treatment and research. So he had a team of people
Hmm.
who, and this blows my mind, some of the people on his team had both an MD degree and a PhD in medicine.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
so he had 10 people on his team plus him. And he had hired me to come in and speak about leadership and vulnerability and how to be, an effective leader. And so before as we were doing the workup and talking about things and I was learning about his team, I said, how much education does your team have on average before they get into these roles
Mhm.
postgraduate? He said anywhere between
Yeah.
12 and 18 years of postgraduate
Oh, wow.
work. And
It's a
so
lot.
so here's the funny thing, Mike. I'm a guy who almost flunked out of undergrad twice.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm driving to the hospital to do my it's over lunch, to do my thing over lunch. It's about a 20-ish
Hmm.
minute drive. And I'm driving and I have a pre-gig, I call it my pre-gig playlist. So it's like it's just like hype
Hmm.
music, it's
Right.
everything to get you in the mood. And I'm listening to
Yeah.
that. And as I'm listening, on one side of my brain, I'm fired up. And the other side is these what if abouts. And literally
Mm-hmm.
it's like, who what makes you think that you have anything to say to these people who have collectively 120 and between 120 and 180 years of education?
Yeah. Yeah.
You almost flunked out of undergrad twice.
Yeah. Imposter
Like,
syndrome, right?
totally. It's like, who do you think you are? And
Yeah.
and what I call it, the assault of the what if abouts are just,
Hmm.
you're not smart. These people are geniuses. You don't know jack about oncology. You don't, all those
Yeah.
things. So what I have started doing, and I caution people, check your surroundings before you do this. I was in the car by myself, so it was fine. But what I do is I literally start talking back to these things out loud.
Mm.
And so what I
Yeah.
said were I respond to each one of them individually. Who do I think I am? I'm the guy that's getting paid to go talk to these people for an hour. I'm the guy whose
Yeah.
name is on the meeting invite that all of these really smart people are going to come to. I am the
Yeah.
guy who has worked hard to learn these lessons that I'm going to share. And true, I don't know anything about being an oncologist. I don't know anything about oncology research.
Yeah.
And I do know how to be a better leader. And that's what I'm going to talk about. And in fact, Mike, when I went there, because What If Abouts was part of my presentation, I
Hmm.
told them that story. I said, here's what was happening to me on my way here.
Yeah.
And they thought it was funny because they don't think about the fact that there are these super uber smart people because they have their own what if abouts too. Right.
Sure. We all do.
And so for me, I have learned to talk back to them. And then the other thing is like some of them, and I find this in my executive coaching that I do, I find that some of these what if abouts are running around in our heads from the time that we were like between 8 and 12 years old. And often we
Hmm.
hear them in our heads in the voice of a coach, a parent, a bully, a
Hmm.
teacher, an ex-girlfriend, a sibling, a spouse. Like we hear these,
Yeah.
we still hear them in the voice of that person. And what I've realized is just simply telling them out loud that like those aren't true. I reject
Yeah.
those because what I found is that what if abouts are incredibly tenacious, but they are
Hmm.
not very creative. So it's when you finally
Yeah.
tell them to shut the hell up and get away from you, they do. It's kind
Yep.
of like punching a bully in the face. When you punch a bully, they're like, "Oh damn, you're not intimidated by me anymore. It's time to go find my next victim." And I find
Right.
the same thing happens when we stand up to our what if abouts.
The only time I ever punched somebody in the face, I think it was fifth or sixth grade, and some kid was
Mhm.
bullying me. He was bigger than I was small. And I was not a fighter. I did not fight. I did not want to fight, but I just hauled off and hit him, and hit him right in the neck, I think, maybe part of the jaw. But after that, he left me alone.
That's right.
And you're exactly right. And these thoughts are bullies, right? And we have to
They
talk
are.
back. And heck, I was walking this morning, 5 o'clock, and I had some thoughts going through my head that were like, "Man, it's a tough day. You don't feel right. It's just a bad morning. You don't deserve to be helping these folks that you're talking to." And I said, "No,
Mm,
no, I do deserve. I have walked this path. I
absolutely.
do feel great today." And man, by 15 minutes in my walk, I felt great, and it does
Mhm.
make a difference. And
It really does.
I think a lot of us, we stop at the point where the bullying of ourselves happens instead of fighting back.
All that and I think that's a really, really good point because I think part of us there's a great quote by a lady named Marianne Williamson. Um,
Hmm.
part of it it's a very long quote, but and I think people who are listening might be familiar with at least this part. But I think sometimes we self-sabotage so badly that we believe these things or
Hmm.
maybe not even believe them, but we don't want to let them go, or we think that they might be true. And the quote that she
Right.
has, which I love, is she said, "It's not our darkness that we are most afraid of, it's our light." We think, "Who
Hmm.
am I to be beautiful, wonderful, amazing?"
Yeah.
And her retort to that in the quote is actually, "Who are you not to be? Who are you not
Hmm.
to be great? Why can't you be great?"
Right.
And I think that flip of the script is so important, and I think many of us, like,
Very.
we on one the dichotomy that's there, like, on one hand, we wanna be successful, but on the other side, we're terrified of that success, so we self-sabotage so we don't get there, and I think
Yes.
if we don't realize that these what if abouts are a way to self-sabotage and thus root them out, they stay around, and they
Yeah.
set up camp.
Happened. I'm self-sabotaging has happened so many times throughout my career, and it was almost always due to depression and the negative thoughts in my head and the fear, right?
Yeah.
And you have to conquer those things. Now, let's talk about fire starters. You talk about finding your fire. Tell me a little bit about what that means and how do you find your fire? How did you find your fire?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I knew even when I was in college that I would have my own business someday. So I used to have this.
Mm.
like file fold. It was sometimes it was a file folder, sometimes it was a spiral notebook.
Mhm.
But I would just write things down about, the kind of leader I wanted to be, the kind of people I wanted to serve, the way I wanted to serve them. But then I would also like, if I had a bad experience as a customer, I would write down what that was like and how that made me feel.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know where all that was going to go or how it was going to culminate, but I
Yeah.
knew I wanted to do something. So
Mhm.
when I was in a job for almost 10 years, or with a company, I was in several jobs, but I was with the company for almost
Mhm.
10 years. My job got eliminated. I saw it coming. So as I
Mhm.
saw it coming, I hired a business consultant and I said, "Hey, I think I have something that I want to share, but I don't know what the framework looks like and I don't really know how to share it." Like, the way that I say it is, it was like this chaos cloud that was just kind of like a tornado, like swirling in my head, but it hadn't
Mhm.
touched down yet. It was just had, again, in the cartoons, like the
Sure.
kitchen sink is in there and the car is flying around,
Yes.
and grandma's might be in there swirling too, but like there's all these things that
Right.
are up there. And so I hired this lady and we were working on it, and I knew also that I was going to get 6 months of severance. I call it the gift of
Mm.
severance because it was a gift for me. I was ready to
Mm.
go. And so we're sitting there and she said, we did a lot of brainstorming. What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? How have you helped people in your past? What do people come to you for? What do people ask your advice on? All kinds of different things. So she gave me a lot of homework. And I'll never forget, we had 3 sessions and we were sitting in the
Mhm.
third session. I was a little frustrated because I'm like, I just like, I feel like we're doing this work, but I don't feel like anything's coming. And I was, had my head down. I was working on something on a piece of paper, and she's at the whiteboard and she goes, "Well, there's your framework." And I just remember, Mike, I was like, I have a framework? What is it?
Yeah.
And she said,
Yeah.
what it originally started at was find your fire, fan your flame, tend your tribe, because I'm a big believer in what Jim Rohn says, that we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
Mhm.
It has transformed into find your fire, fan your flame, and ignite your life. Those are the 3 pillars now. But basically, what I believe, and that's the crux of that book that's up there. So that came from me really
Mhm.
doing my own work, and
Mhm.
who am I? What was I made to do? What is the thing that I most want to see in other people? And so I started working through that, and I have been either a teacher, a college professor, an adjunct professor for a lot of my life. And one of the things for me that is really my ember, and that's a core belief of the book, that we're all born with this ember inside of us, this little
Mhm.
heat giving off thing. And I really
Yep.
do believe that it's our life's work to work this ember into a flame that both feeds and nurtures us, that we feel
Mhm.
satisfied in life, we don't feel lost, we don't feel burned out, we feel aligned. Like, that's one part of it. And then
Yeah.
also, it helps slash attracts other people to what we're doing. And I believe we all have
Mhm.
that. And I don't think that that means, by the way, you've got to, Jerry Maguire. For younger people, go Google that. But I don't think you need to Jerry
Right.
Maguire your life and, like, I'm out, I'm selling my house, I'm moving overseas. I don't think you have to do that
Yeah.
unless you do need to do that. And maybe that's the thing. I don't know. But it could be starting a book club with a bunch of lonely people. It could be all kinds of things. My wife and I are watching the 2024 season of The Voice in the UK. And there's two
Mhm.
twins, these boys that sing together, and they started a choir for retired women.
Mm.
And they've got this choir of like 40 women who love to sing, and they meet once a week. And they were doing an interview with them, and one of the ladies was like, "We love this so much, Thursdays can't come fast enough." And like,
Yeah. Purpose.
they're still doing their thing, but like, this is something that's giving them back, and it gives them so much satisfaction, and it creates this incredible experience for these ladies. So the question is, like, what is that thing? And so another book that I wrote that I'm in the process of revamping with some mental health pieces, it's a
Mhm.
30-day journaling workbook. The new title will be Ignite Your Life. But part of that
Mhm.
is you walk through, you asked me how I found my fire. Like, as adults, we quit dreaming because we're told that dreams are stupid, or that dreams aren't going to come
Mhm.
true, or
Mhm.
dreams are just for the lucky, or dreams are just, fill in
Right.
the whatever cliche. I don't believe that. I
Sure.
believe that if you can dream it, you can achieve it. It also
Mhm.
means that that doesn't mean that it just falls out of the sky. You've got to go work for it.
Right.
So part of it is like just being very intentional. Like, what do you dream about? What excites you? What do you
Mhm.
get fulfillment from? If you could, build your ideal community around you, what would that community look like? If you could do it,
Mhm.
if time didn't matter, what would you do? If money didn't matter, what would you do? And then the other
Right.
thing that I have, and I'll send this to you when we're done so you can put it in the show notes, is I have this
Right.
feedback exercise that you can do. You choose people that are close to you and ask them for 5 words that describe you with a couple of sentences of context.
Mhm.
The key is you have to do it first for yourself before you can ask
Mm.
anybody else to do it. And what you get
Okay.
back then, including your list, is you have 30 words that are all ridiculously positive with context about
Mhm.
how people that are close to you see you.
Yeah.
And it can be life altering because
I'm
so,
sure.
what I say to my clients when we go through this is I say, you're gonna expect to hear a couple things because you've heard them your whole life. You're full of energy, you're
Mhm.
diligent, you never quit, whatever it happens to be. But there will be a handful of words that you will get that you'll go, huh, I didn't know anybody knew that about me. Or you may even get some that you're like, I don't even really see that in myself, but 3 out of the 5 people that I
Yeah.
asked for these words did see that. Well,
Mhm.
damn, maybe there's something to that. And
Right.
that can
Reinforcing.
help. Yeah. And that can really help spark this idea of like, okay, so this is my fire. So the whole thing is
Mhm.
like, find it. Once you find it, what are we going to do with it? I ask a question in
Yeah.
coaching a lot of my clients. Now that you know, what will you do? Because it doesn't make any
Mhm.
sense to, like if you went to the heart doctor and he said, you can't have McDonald's anymore, you need to stop eating it today. And you leave
Yeah.
and go get a Big Mac value meal with extra fries.
Mhm.
That's not smart. so,
No. Right.
find your fire. What do you need to do to grow it, to fan it? And then I really
Mhm.
do believe when you plug into that and it starts attracting, I believe that your vibe attracts your tribe. The energy you put
Yes.
out attracts your people. And once you do that, like, and it could be starting a gardening club. It could be being a board member of something that you love. It could be volunteering
Yeah.
at the boys club or it can be whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you have this feeling where you're like, ooh, it could be that, and your hands get a little sweaty and you get a little bit of a butterfly in your stomach before the what if abouts come in and start telling you you're stupid. And
Yeah.
that's why that right behind me is strike the match. What's the one little tiny thing that you can do? So if you think like, oh, I could be a board member. Okay, Google boards that that work on X, that thing that you love. And I've been on
Mhm.
some nonprofit boards. They're always looking for help.
Yes.
Um,
Always.
so just and it's not like, okay, well, go join the board. No, just go find it. Are there even opportunities for you? Just do the
Right.
one little thing because you strike that match. Cool. I lit the candle. Awesome. What's the next match you can strike? Light that candle. What's the next match you can
Yeah.
strike? And before you know it, you got this big old flame that's burning and it's
Mhm.
incredible.
Yeah. Finding your tribe is important, and I didn't learn that until the last year or so.
Hmm.
When you start surrounding yourself with people that are aligned to the same purpose that
Yeah.
you are geared towards. For me, it's become mental health awareness. It's amazing what it's attracted to my life, and
Yes.
something I never thought possible. So it is possible. and you can align with your
Absolutely.
tribe and you can fan those flames. You just got to put your mind to it and basically, fight back against those thoughts in your head.
Right. Well, and here's the other thing I'll say. A lot of people, I'm here and that thing I want is like way over here. And man, when I'm
Hmm.
standing over here, that looks like a real that's a big bridge. I don't know how to I don't even know
Yeah.
how to get there.
Yeah.
Like I
So
would
far
love to
away.
do this thing.
Right.
I would love to do this thing, but it's so far away. It seems like so much work. And then that's when the what if abouts. They're like, yeah, that'll probably never work. Yeah, it's gonna be so
Yeah.
hard. Yeah, you've already tried something like, and that's why it's like I tell my clients all the time, my first meeting, I'm like, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go find something that you know you will be successful at. This match that is so easy, so easy.
Hmm.
If you want to get in better shape, can you do 5 push-ups tomorrow? I don't know if I could do 5. Could you do
Yep.
1? I could do
Start.
1.
Yep.
Do 1.
Hmm.
Do 1.
Yep.
And then maybe do 1 for 5 days in a row. And then on the 6th day, go, I'm going to try 2 today.
Yeah.
And if you do that
Yep.
every day, that little match, by the end of the year, you're going to be pushing out 100 push-ups and look jacked.
Right. Right. I got back to push ups this morning. It was pretty funny actually that you said that because I had not done it the last couple of weeks.
See
My
how the
hand had been
universe
bugging me.
see how the universe
Right.
brings what you need? I love it.
Yep. I did 10, so I'm like, dang,
Congratulations.
I feel old, but it's a start. And I'd like to get to 100. When I was
10's
younger, I used
better
to
than
listen about
0.
Herschel Walker. It is better
Yeah,
than 0. When I was younger, I read about Herschel Walker. I think he used to do like 1,000 push-ups and crunches a day. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And I never did it because I started with trying to get to 1,000 instead of trying to get to
right.
10 to 20 to 30.
Right.
So, you know, you got to start somewhere. Just like when I started walking, a few years back, 10 minutes was brutal. I hate this. I don't want to do this. It's miserable. Now
Right.
I don't even stop. Like 2 miles is easy. So it's like every morning I do at least 2 miles and it's
Yeah,
just building the mindset and the habits to do it.
that's exactly right.
Now, do you have someone in your tribe that plays the devil's advocate with you? I know that, I think you've talked about it
Mm,
before, and we need someone in our life that challenges us
yep.
and not just cheers us on.
Yeah, I do, and I'm gonna shout him out. His name's Chip Nighty. He's a guy that lives here in Indy. We met through a mutual love of the Enneagram. Chip is an 8 on the Enneagram. The 8s are challengers. 8s see things very
Hmm.
black and white. And Chip was one of those guys that I met, and I talk to him once every couple of years, maybe once, maybe
Hmm.
once a year. And sometimes we'll run into each other at different places. But whenever I see him or whenever I reach out to him, I'm like, I don't really want to talk to him because I know he's going to ask me questions that I don't want to answer.
It's going to
And
make you think.
that is exactly why I need to talk to him. And that is exactly what
Hmm.
he does. And I hate it, but I also love it and I need it. And
Nice.
because that is what I just described. That is just the way that he is wired. That is just who he is.
Hmm.
And I know that every time we talk,
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter if we met about though. He'll find a way to ask me a question. And I'm like, damn you for asking me that question that I knew you were going to ask. And I
Hmm.
was hoping you weren't. And I thought I almost got away with it. And then it's like, nope. And it happens every single time. And I think we all need, here's the thing I will say though, Mike. I think we all need a devil's advocate in our life.
Hmm.
And devil's advocates are not the people that we need to invite to the brainstorming party because they are not dreamers. Devil's advocates see things
Hmm.
in black and white. And if you
Yeah.
invite them to a dreaming party, they are going to shoot down every single one of those balloons with an
Yeah.
AK-47 and make
Yes.
sure that
Yeah.
that balloon is annihilated. So get them
Yeah.
once you've done the brainstorming, once you've done some of the planning, once you've done like I've got these 3 options.
Hmm.
Now, devil's advocate, tell me which one is great, if any. Tell me which one's not going to work. Like, give me no holds barred. Like, just let me have it.
Hmm.
And they're like, ooh, let you have it. You just asked for it the way that I give it. Ooh, all right, let's go. And
Yeah.
it sucks, but
Sure. It's hard.
they're really really good at it.
Yes, it's really important. I think that's a great topic that you brought up. Now let's talk a little bit about your work, fractional sales leadership. You're giving busy executives the time back by handling sales meetings, one-on-ones, CRM, pipeline review. Explain a little bit more about your fractional leadership and what that looks like.
I know that in smaller companies, I'm talking like 5 to 120, 130 people, where it can still, I mean, even with 100 people, it can feel like a startup. And a lot of times the folks on
Sure.
the leadership team are like, a lot of times salespeople start companies because they want to generate income.
Hmm.
So they're like, oh, well,
Yep.
I'll lead the company and I'll also do sales because I love sales and I've created the product. So I want to sell it. And then the business grows and
Yeah.
grows, and they get to a point where they're like, I don't have the time, energy, or capacity
Hmm.
to give sales the attention that it needs. And that's where I
Hmm.
can come in. I have a list of menu items basically that say, where do you need help? I can come in and do, we scope it out very specifically. I can come and do these things. But where I find it's
Hmm.
most effective is where the that executive leader taps out, lets me run it. So I will run the one-on-ones.
Hmm.
I will run the sales meeting. We will, I'll hold accountability. We'll do pipeline review. Hey, this deal has been in stage 4 of 5 for 6 months.
Hmm.
If it doesn't close in the next month, we're closing it out as closed loss unless you can give me a very, very solid reason why we shouldn't do that. And so I
Yeah.
tell people that I will come in and I will be attentive to the bottom line and focused on your people so that we can develop them. And what I found for me
Sure.
is it's the perfect marriage of my skill set because I am a people developer at heart and I love
Hmm.
sales. And my
Hmm.
hypothesis is that salespeople are well paid and well resourced. They have all the
Hmm.
bells and whistles. They have generous expense accounts, all the things. And I think they are
Hmm.
also some of the loneliest and some of the most under professionally and personally developed people out in the business world because we hire them and we say, oh, we'll just go be
Hmm.
successful. And how do we
Right.
reward them
Here you
when they've
go.
had a successful year? How do we reward them? We give them a higher sales goal next year.
Right.
So
Almost
it's like
every time. Yeah.
right. And so having what I find is some of these people who have it all um, are incredibly lonely. And because
Yeah.
they've been successful, they don't want to tell their boss, hey, I think I need help with this, or I need to get better at that, because their boss thinks that they're a
Hmm.
rainmaker and that they're, a super hunter. And so the last thing I want to
Hmm.
do is tell somebody I'm not good at something. And so I just
Yeah.
find that a lot of these folks haven't had a lot of development opportunities, and that's where I can come in and then let that busy executive go off and do those things. And typically for me it looks like between 4 to 8 hours a week every
Hmm.
week. For typically I find 6, I like 12-month engagements because it really gives me an opportunity to get embedded in the organization. But like
Sure.
if you need to clean house on your sales team, if you need to rebuild your sales team, if you need to build a sales
Yeah.
team because you don't have one, I can come in and, in partnership with that leader and leadership, help them out. I have found that I can give a busy executive about a week a month of their life back. Who doesn't want a week a month of their life back?
Which is a lot of time.
That is a lot of time.
Now, this is a word I did not know until we met. You are an Enneagram certified coach, and you
Yes.
use the Enneagram with sales teams to build synergy and create supportive culture. Can you tell me a little more about what that is? Because that was new to me. I really didn't have any experience with it.
Yeah, and it was new to me as well. When you look at it, it doesn't look like it's spelled Enneagram. It is
Hmm.
a personality typing system that basically you take a survey and it gives you a number that is your main number profile, a number between 1 and 9. And
Hmm.
if anybody out there that's listening has taken a disc or a Myers Briggs or a Strengths Finder or I think there's another one that has to do with Genius. There are a lot of these that are out there. This one for
Hmm.
me specifically was incredibly beneficial. Let me say this about these things. I think assessments are great tools. I do not believe that when the results come back, that that is in essence saying this is the box that you need to fit
Hmm.
in. I think it's a great
Sure.
opportunity for self-awareness and self-reflection and to see like where we would like to grow and where we would like to change. And it also informs how we show up in the world, but it's not a form that you have to fit into. So
Hmm.
for me, what was really interesting, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. The 7s are the enthusiasts.
Hmm.
Often people will say, "Hey, Jason, do you want to?" They won't even finish the sentence. And I'll say, "Yep. What are we doing?"
Yeah.
So lots of hope, lots of optimism. But what
Hmm.
I love about the Enneagram is that the Enneagram will also make you aware of what your behavior is in stress. And I
Hmm.
cannot highlight this enough, the difference that that made in my life, because it pointed out some
Hmm.
things for me. I'm typically high energy. I don't love to be in the weeds. I don't like mundane
Hmm.
tasks. Don't ask me to be a spreadsheet creator or a internet code writer. Like those kinds of things make me
Hmm.
like break out into a rash. And when I am stressed, I become a detail, worrywart, micromanager, which is totally opposite of the way that you normally experience me in the world. And if your team,
Hmm.
whether you are a leader or a member of the team, if your team doesn't understand how you show up in stress, what I've realized, Mike, is
Hmm.
that other members of so let's say, for example, your stress response is avoidance and
Hmm.
you just ghost meetings, you don't turn your camera on for meetings, you start missing deadlines. If
Yeah.
your team doesn't know that that is your stress response, your team and very likely the individuals on that team will make up a collective and an individual story or stories about why you are doing that.
Hmm.
Oh, they don't like me. Oh, they think they're better than me. Oh,
Yes.
they think they're above the rules. Rules don't apply to them. And what happens then you
Yeah.
start
True
having a
story.
conversation with somebody else on the team and you go, "Yeah, they think they're better than me. Yeah, I thought that too." And then it just
Hmm.
becomes this narrative when in actuality it's because you're stressed. And by the way, you may not
Yep.
even know that that is your stress response because I was in my middle 40s
Yeah.
before I figured that out. And I went and I asked my children, we have 3, they were all sitting around the breakfast table. And I kind of jokingly, I said, "Hey, kids, guess what dad learned this week? That this is the way that I am when I'm stressed. I get really list makey and micromanagey." And it was so funny because they were 12, 7, and 3. And they were all kind of like looking around at each other at the breakfast table, like shooting eyes. And finally, the oldest goes, "We know, Dad." And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
you
They're
know,
like, no crap, Dad. We already
at
wear this.
12, he knew. At
Yeah.
43, I didn't. And
Yep.
because of
I
the
see it.
life-changing experience that I had with the Enneagram, I decided to go get certified, and I have seen it change people's lives over and over and over.
Nice. Yeah. It sounds like it's life changing and important. Now, let's talk about your books. You've written Igniting the Fire Starter Within, 30 Days to Blaze, which is going to be re released as Ignite Your Life. And now you're working
Mhm.
about book number 3 as What If Abouts. What's the core message you want people to take from your books?
Man, I would say that the core message is twofold. Number 1, you are here for a reason, whether you know what that reason is or not.
Hmm.
And with some introspection and reflection, you can figure out what that is and take action.
Hmm.
Actually, let's say 3. And then the third
Hmm.
thing is when you begin to take action, just like like I think about starting a campfire. Most of the time
Hmm.
you light that fire in 3 or 4 different places, the paper that's there or whatever. And it's the same with
Yep.
that thing that's in us. We take some action and then we realize like, oh, this thing really it really is something. Um, I just believe that nobody here is worthless. And I also believe I don't state this overtly in either of the books, but I believe this and I've said it in my keynotes. if you are not if you have not found that ember, and if you are, if you are ignoring that as your life's work, you are robbing the world of the gifts that you were given to make this place a better place. And what a
It's a great
tragedy.
way to put it. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I know you're working on what if abouts now. I actually love that name. It's really catchy. I keep thinking it in my head as I think about
I
talking about it
appreciate
and
that.
reading it. And yeah, I think it'll get a lot of people's attention. It'll at least start them thinking like, what if spouse? What are those? And you've collected over
Mhm.
1,200. What are
Yeah.
some of the common ones, and the ones that maybe show up over and over again?
Oh man, the word enough shows up all the time. And not good enough, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not
Hmm.
skinny enough, not young enough, not old
Hmm.
enough, not experienced
Yeah.
enough. And what's
Hmm.
really interesting is that the flip side of those, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too
Yep.
experienced, I'm too skinny, I'm too
Yep.
energetic, and so I
Yep.
find those extremes. And I told you I grabbed some of these before. I've got stacks of these in this cabinet that's up
Oh wow.
above
Yeah.
me. And just, like I'll just read. And what I have people do when they fill these out is write their age, their gender, and the industry that they're in. So this is a 54-year-old
Okay.
female in the construction world, road construction.
Okay.
I feel that what I
Hmm.
have to say is already known. My message is not a life-changing message. So just think about that. If that is this person's what if
Yeah.
about, this is what they show up with every day at work. And so
Every
when
day.
somebody says, "Does anybody have anything to say?" This person is not going to raise their hand because they're going to go,
They're
"My
quiet.
message doesn't matter. Why should I care?"
Right.
And
Right.
to here's another one. Age 55, male in IT. Here's the
Hmm.
here's the enough. I am not smart enough. I am a coward. I am
Mm.
unfocused.
Wow.
And
Who
what's
hasn't said that? I mean, I know I have.
right. And what's
Yeah.
crazy to me, Mike, is I tell them when we do this exercise, I say write down one.
Yeah.
Most of the time there's two, three, four, six.
Yes.
Let me read one more. 37 years old, male in the concrete world.
Hmm.
Their what if about is that I'll never make it to where I think I should be.
Mm.
And I have a phrase, your listeners are going to need to listen carefully, but I have a phrase that says, don't should on yourself and don't should on other people. And
I like that.
that should, like it should be according to who? Your parents, your
Yeah.
wife, your coach from fifth grade? Like
Yeah.
who? And what I have found is across industries, across genders, across age ranges, across
Hmm.
experience, we're all pretty much telling ourselves the same thing, and that is nobody cares. I'm not important. I'm too whatever or not enough of
Yep.
whatever. And
Yeah.
so basically, I should just, you know, bump down the lazy river of life and not cause any extra waves. And
Right.
I think
Mm.
that sucks.
Awful. Right. Yes. We need to reach more people.
Yeah.
If someone's listening and they're at their version of the curve where they're thinking about how to make it look like an accident, where they don't want to be here anymore, and everybody's version of the curve is different, what would you tell them today? What do they need to hear?
Mm. I would say a couple of things. If you are to the place where the curve is the focus, you
Hmm.
are at a place where you are no longer you've lost perspective. And I don't know if you can get that perspective back on your own. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm
Sure.
saying I think it's very hard. And if that is
Hmm.
the place where you find yourself in, I can guarantee you, regardless of what your stupid brain is telling you, I can guarantee you that the people that you're going to leave behind will in fact miss you. It will leave a hole. It will leave a wound. And getting help is that first match strike of saying,
Yep.
I would say actually that the awareness of this is not normal,
Hmm.
that that is a that can be a match strike that can then lead to and talking to somebody, and that somebody doesn't necessarily need to be your primary care doctor. It doesn't necessarily need to be a
Right.
therapist. But what has happened is you have painted yourself into a dungeon that is an echo chamber that is only repeating the BS that you have been telling yourself in your head over and over and over. And when you finally have an
Yep.
opportunity to say it out loud to somebody else, and you will hear this from others, maybe not from this person, but when you hear from other people, when you share your story, oh, wow, me too. There
Hmm.
is an unbelievable amount of relief and freedom that comes from knowing that we are not the only ones who are dealing with this thing and
Absolutely.
that
I'm
you
amazed
owe
by
it
that.
to
Yeah.
yourself and you owe it to yourself and to the people who care about you to get some sort of help. And I say this, Mike, and I
Hmm.
say this honestly. I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to walk somebody through a therapy session, but if you just need somebody to listen to
Right.
you, we'll put my stuff in the show notes. Send me an email. I would
Yeah.
love to be a person who could help direct you to the place where you need to go to get help because we all need
Yep.
that person to stand in the gap and say, I don't want to see you blow this.
We want, you need to be here. We want you to be here.
Absolutely.
And lastly, your call to action is, so what are you waiting for? Start your fire. What does starting your fire look like today, right now, for someone listening?
Stop going through the motions. I mean, how many of us have driven to work, pulled into the parking space, however long our commute is, and gone, how the hell did I get here? I have no idea.
Been there, done that. Yes.
Don't remember the turns, couldn't tell you anything that I've seen on this drive.
Hmm.
We are in such autopilot.
Right.
Do something different. Go to bed half an hour earlier. Get up half an hour earlier.
Hmm.
Commit to writing down one thing today that you're grateful for. Like,
Yes.
how do you start? You start. There's a great quote that says, the best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago. The next best time is today.
Yes.
And just start, do something. You know,
Yep.
there's a reason that that program you talked about walking. There's a reason that the program Couch to 5K is
Hmm.
a good program because literally the first thing is like get up off the couch and walk to the mailbox. For
Yeah.
some people, that is a tremendous accomplishment. Great.
Yes.
If you have to stand up and get to your front door but not to the mailbox, I don't care what it is. Some strike a match, do
Something.
some small little thing, and here's the key that you know you're going to be successful at. Don't do it if
Hmm.
you're like, probably not going to finish it, because if you don't finish it, you're going to beat
Yeah.
yourself up and you're back in the same cycle again.
Right. Something small goals that you can achieve that get your
Tiny,
fire started, you know?
tiny.
Yeah. And you reminded me to do my gratitude because I
Love
write
that.
down every day and I hadn't done it yet today. So I
Love
appreciate
that.
that. I keep it here and I missed it. So now it's
Nice.
on my keyboard.
Nice.
Now, where can people find you?
Love that question. I pretty much have set up camp on LinkedIn. I've been on that platform for a lot of years. So you can find me
Hmm.
at, and we'll put the link in, but you can find me at Jason Barnaby.
Sure.
I also have a Firestarters Inc. page on LinkedIn. I do more kind of posting on Instagram, sort of things that move me. I find myself scrolling through Instagram and crying at like soldier reunion stories and those kinds of
Oh,
things.
yes. Those tear at the
So
heartstrings. Yes.
100%. So a lot of humanity, from time to time, some rants about the current political climate that we're in. But you can also find me on Instagram at Firestarters Inc.
Okay. Awesome. And if you're a business leader who needs fractional sales leadership, or if you want a keynote speaker who brings actionable inspiration and isn't afraid to talk about mental health, or if you need an Enneagram coaching for your team, reach out to Jason. Jason Barnaby at Firestarters Inc. is going to bring some value to you just based on what you've heard today. Jason, Thank you. I really appreciate you being here. This conversation is going to help people who are stuck in their
Mm,
what if abouts, and it's going to make a difference.
I really appreciate it, Mike. I appreciate the conversation we had when we met not long ago and the ability to an opportunity to come on your podcast. And I do hope, like, if somebody is listening and you're struggling, know that it's not the end, but it also requires
Absolutely.
action. And I'm so grateful. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, it's been great. And, for those of you out there listening, what I'd like you to take away from today is what if abouts in your head? What makes you so smart? You're going to fail. You're dumb. Those voices are loud and they're universal. Jason hears them. I hear them. Everyone hears them, but they don't have to be the final word. You can fight back. You can talk back to those. I know we both do.
Yep.
And you can find your tribe, people who will encourage you when you're tired and when you're afraid. So if you don't have that tribe, go find them. It's amazing what you find when you go looking. So take from me, from experience, that I've been there, Jason's been there, and you are needed in this world because you will
Hmm.
find that fire that gets you started. And if you're at that curve right now, you're planning how to make it look like an accident, please call 988 or text
Yes.
988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Don't drive through that curve alone today. Call someone right now. You matter. Your fire matters, and we need you here. If this episode did help you, or if you think it can help someone else, please like and share it. Please subscribe. We know that there's a lot of people out there that need to hear it. I'm Mike Orlowski. This is Mojo, Motivation and Mental Health. Choose happiness, choose extraordinary, start your fire, and get your mojo back. Thank you.